This is the unfiltered feed. The unfiltered feed.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Feed with Yash and Ved. Today, we are here to talk about the first week of IPL 2026. It's gone by very fast already. It's almost 1 week since it began, and we have had 7 matches so far. Every single team has played one match, and 4 teams have played two. So, we are going to talk about all of these matches and make some predictions for the upcoming season. So with me, I've got Ved. Ved, how have you been, and how have you enjoyed this first week?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, and I've really enjoyed watching the first week of action. I think we have settled into the league now. At the start, always you feel a bit overexcited at times with the season getting underway, but this is the kind of stage where you start getting used to the games
Yeah,
and you're no longer eagerly waiting for a game because every evening you obviously have a game to watch.
yeah. The double headers haven't kicked in because then it really gets into the middle phase. Tomorrow, as we record, tomorrow is the first double header. So we'll talk about that later. But so far, have you been impressed with the quality of cricket, or was it something that's along the lines of your expectations?
Yeah, we had discussed about this before the tournament began. We had a certain set of expectations, mostly regarding the conditions, and those have been uh, quite accurate for us. I think we did expect a varying kind of conditions and not just high scoring games. If you remember when we recorded last time, it was after the second game, and though there
Stadium
was
is
a lot of
sure to have
criticism being
energy on the
pointed at
floor
the
to
BCCI
have.
for
This is the
curating such
unfiltered
tracks, we were
feed. The
quite wary
unfiltered
that it was
feed.
two of the best batting lineups against two of the worst bowling lineups and in two of the best batting conditions. So wait till you take a call, and that is exactly what has happened. And I'm very glad that that is how it has gone. We have had all kinds of games, ranging from the absolute pinnacles of T20 batting all the way down to some as good as Test cricket bowling in a couple of games. So I'm thoroughly impressed and I'm enjoying these conditions a lot.
Right, so let's dive into your favorite game so far. Which of the first 7 games did you enjoy the most?
I think we haven't had a last ball thriller as such. So my ranking would be based on what I liked more, which is a bit subjective. But I'm a test cricket romantic, and obviously that has to kick in at some point, though people will think I'm a fool for expecting test cricket in IPL. But I would say that Lucknow versus Delhi game was quite thrilling to watch, and the kind of bowling I saw, especially in the second innings, though Lucknow lost that game, I feel the pace with which the Pacers were bowling and the kind of, I would say, I've never felt this excited watching a bowling attack in the IPL. And I'm hoping a lot of good things in the future from this LSG attack. And that is precisely why I picked them in my playoffs, for which I received a bit of flack online.
Yeah, I was the first person because I did that during the podcast. But I think that game was very exciting. I don't think I watched the entire match, but I was following it on Cricinfo. And I think why it made fans like you excited was because I think the batting side they had to actually play some careful cricket. After losing wicket, they had to kind of slow down, build a partnership, and then they began slogging again. Whereas in other games, you just come into bat and you start hitting from ball one because the conditions are so easy. So I think that was a good thing that the Lucknow game offered. And how much of it was, do you think, the conditions, or was it the excellent fast bowling attack that Lucknow has? Because they've got some good players, and it's a they've got a lot of variety. You've got Shami who can swing, Mohsin Khan who's a left-hander and is also a bit tall, so he can play with the bounce. And then you've got Prince Yadav and Nokia who are express pace. So do you think it's more of the bowling attack that did that, or was it the pitch?
Yeah, I think both of those played a part, but I would say it was mainly the bowling because the pitch wasn't as such demonic, but the bowling was top notch, and especially Mohammad Shami and Mohsin Khan with the new ball. But though I loved them, I would say Prince Yadav just stood out for me. He did show glimpses last season as well,
Yeah.
but he was absolutely brilliant in that game. The figures won't really tell you the entire story, but if you watched him bowl, I think you would understand what I'm saying. And he does look very early, but I would like to just drop his name into that reckoning for Test cricket right now, right next to Akim Nabi. I'm very impressed, and I know it might sound a bit reactive, but you will get to know more about him as the season progresses. And one more good thing from that game was that Mohsin Khan seems to have returned back to full fitness, and you could see with the way he was bowling. I think he bowled his first 11 balls were dots, which is unbelievable, and he ended with an expensive over to take his figures to up to 21 runs that he conceded. And he picked up a couple of wickets. So I think he looks like he's back in rhythm. Shami, not back to his best, but much better than what I saw him last time around, which is a positive. And you've still got Mayank Yadav on the bench. So a lot of positives. Andrik Norkia doesn't really warrant a place in the side, but they've got a lot of options to replace him and strengthen their batting with another foreigner.
Yeah, the fact that Prince Yadav was playing ahead of Mayank Yadav itself shows that Lucknow have seen something in him, because I believe Mayank is also fit, so it's not that he's out because of injury, which is a big thing because I think for the first time all Lucknow bowlers are fit, and I
Yeah,
think they
you've
also have
also got Avesh Khan
Avish Khan, yeah,
on the bench.
so lot of options for them. I think yeah, Lucknow. I think the pitch also played a part because the ball was swinging early on. Plus, the ground itself is a bit bigger than usual, so that must have helped them a bit. But the bowling also was amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they do on batting tracks like Dewan Khede or Chinnaswamy or even Chepok nowadays. With that,
Yeah, and I'm a bit more optimistic about Lucknow than what the story would say because they were forced to get in Shahbaz Ahmed as their impact sub because they
yeah,
lost early wickets. So they actually were a bowler short and still managed to put the Capitals under a bit of pressure. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Digvesh Rathi goes. Of course, we talked about him before. His second season, the sophomore blues might just kick in a bit, but he would have been very handy in those conditions, especially in that situation where you had all the pressure built and then you just didn't have a fifth bowler. And Shabaz Ahmed and Aiden Makram, they just leaked runs and they couldn't really keep Delhi under check.
yeah, I think if Digvesh was playing the game, they would have probably promoted Miller to counter for his leg spin. But you never know what Digvesh can do because he's not a traditional leg spinner. He's more like Bishnoi, where he'll bowl a lot of googlies and quicker deliveries. So with that, let's talk about my favorite game, and it's purely biased because I'm going to pick the second match of the season, about which we spoke last time. But I just want to mention that quickly because Mumbai, they won their first match of the season after I don't know how long, but I think we spoke about this. So I just realized that we already made a video.
You just had to put that name back up.
But yeah, other than that, in the games after our podcast, I think the Punjab Gujarat game was quite exciting because at one point to me it felt like Punjab was cruising to an easy win, and then suddenly they remembered who they are and decided to throw the match away. They tried their best, but they just have so many batters that even after losing four quick wickets, they still had Marco Jansen. Cooper Connolly was batting from one side, who steadied the ship, and then they ended up winning quite comfortably. But that game was almost lost for Punjab.
Yeah, and I think we did talk about this in our preview that you never know how they go while chasing because they're inexperienced bunch and they might crumble under pressure. and that is what we saw in both the games. Even in today's game, they were going well and they suddenly lost back to back wickets, and things could have gone south for them. But of course, Shashank did do well to get them across the line. But that is a concern for them, and the other concern is later in the tournament when the pitches get a bit slower, how do they tackle the spin? So that was good to see the way they kind of recovered after that blip, because the Punjab Kings of the past would have just gone on to lose. And you
Yeah.
have seen many games in the past. They just don't know how to finish games off. But I think in both the games they've done well, and I think two wins to start your season is it is underrated, but it is a big positive because later in the tournament, once all the teams have got their combinations right, it becomes harder to get the wins. So when you do it at the very start, it gives you a boost, and it doesn't put you under much pressure later on.
Yeah. And I was mostly impressed with their win today on the day of recording against CSK because I think in the Gujarat match, Cooper Conley was batting from one side. So they had one set batter in, so he could kind of direct the batting. And you had Marco Jansen, who's also quite experienced, but he didn't really have to do much. He was just there for 10 balls, just steadied the ship and let Cooper Conley do the batting. But today, I think all of a sudden they lost both Shreyas Iyer and Nehal Vadera, and then there were two new batters on the crease. And they still needed, I think, around 27 runs in 3 overs, which is very easy, but you never know. If they lost another wicket or two, it could have become tricky. But then Shashank Singh and Stoinis, they showed their class, especially Shashank Singh. I think he hit three boundaries in an over of Anshul Kamboj and then completely sealed the match and ended up chasing it with 8 balls to spare, which is quite a dominant win. And the fact that they were chasing 210 runs, which is not a small total, and having chased it with 8 balls remaining is a big statement from Punjab.
Yeah, and they seem to be getting the better of CSK every single time in the recent past. I just read a stat that they have now overtaken CSK in the head-to-head record. They lead 17 to 16, which is just unthinkable. Even 2 years back, I wouldn't have believed that this was going to happen. And you also shared a couple of stats which you would like to bring up.
Yeah, so let's talk about CSK. There were a lot of expectations from them going into the season, but sadly, it's a similar story to last year, at least for now. A few important stats that I heard from the great Ian Bishop was that CSK, like you mentioned, have lost 7 of their last 8 games against Punjab Kings. So the head-to-head at one point was or 15-10, and now it's 17-16 in favor of Punjab Kings, which is absolutely unbelievable. And this is a similar thing that happened even against Rajasthan Royals, where at one point they were ahead by 6 or 7 wins, and now Rajasthan Royals are also level with CSK. So these two teams have had their number in the last few years. And the second shocking stat, which I couldn't even believe at first, was that Chennai Super Kings have now lost 6 back-to-back games at the Chepauk Stadium, which is their home ground. And I couldn't even believe this. I had to actually verify and go back and look at the results from last year because at one point it was almost impossible to beat Chennai in Chennai. And I think there was a long streak for about 3-4 years where Mumbai Indians once beat them in 2015. And since then, Chennai just kept winning at home, and it ended with Mumbai beating them again in 2019. So that was how much teams were afraid and helpless to go and play in Chennai. But now it's just all gone downhill for them.
Yeah, I remember even in their worst times, you could see them get the wins at home. And I think in 2023, Punjab Kings, the first team in a while to actually beat Chennai in Chennai. They did
Yeah.
it. I remember they needed three of the last ball, and Sikandar Raza famously finished that game by running three on the last ball. I think that kind of started it all. And then they lost to Rajasthan as well in that season at home.
Sandeep Sharma.
Yeah, and then they've just never been as dominant as. because you would never imagine them to lose at home, let alone multiple games at home. And now, as you mentioned, 6 games in a row is quite incredible. And this is well and truly the end of an era, because how much ever they recover from here, there is a big gap in between their previous dominance and whatever they might achieve later on. But this is definitely the end of a quite dominant CSK, and I won't be surprised if they end up at the bottom this year as well, because if they had lost but given some kind of hope, then I would have still considered them. The things might change as we go ahead, but in both the games, you had the batting stumble in the first game and the bowling over here. So when both of your facets have gone down, and not to forget the fielding, it is not mentioned as much as the batting and bowling, but it makes a huge difference. A single misfield, it just breaks the momentum, and when you keep doing it multiple times, the bowlers aren't happy, and it kind of affects your momentum in a big way. And
Yeah,
that is what I noticed in both the games as well. And it also shows the state of your team. If you are constantly making errors in the field, it means that something is not right. Because fielding, you don't have to be a natural at it. You just do it on your own. You don't have to be skillful, and it's not something that you're born with. You have to
yeah,
practice, and it makes a huge difference, and it is a controllable. And when those things keep going wrong, you can't expect wins with such poor, all round poor discipline. That is what I would say.
yeah. Uh, I think to be fair to CSK though, this probably is not their full strength 11 because there's one certain South African who's missing, and that's Devold Brevis. I think when he slots in, the middle order will become a bit more powerful. But I don't really think they have a lot of issues in the middle order right now. The main concern for me is the bowling, obviously, but in the batting, I would say the form of Sanju Samson and Ruturaj Gaikwad is very concerning because in both the games, Sanju Samson departed early. And there's a meme that's going around the internet which says that usually Sanju Samson has 3 or 4 good innings in a year, and it seems like he's used all of those in the T20 World Cup. So now you're going to see mid-season Sanju Samson right from the start. But I think that's also unfair. It's a new team for him, and he's never played a lot of cricket in Chennai, so he'll get some take some few games to get used to it. But I'm worried about
Yeah,
Ruturaj Gaikwad because he reminds me of KL Rahul, which is very sad. But we know how good Ruturaj Gaikwad can be. He showed that in 2021, but he just doesn't want to he doesn't want to show that intent. Maybe because he's the captain and he just wants to stay there till the end. But that's hurting his team.
yeah. I just want to understand. Last season, I think he played 6 games before getting injured, and he batted at 3 because they had openers and they wanted Rahul Tripathi to kind of express himself at the top. But now that he's back, he has decided to open along with Sanju Samson and push Ayush Matre to 3, who did well for them as an opener last season. And you can see that he kind of takes on the bowling. So I felt that when Sanju Samson is struggling a bit, of course it's been just 2 games, but he hasn't looked like the Sanju Samson that we know. Maybe you can try to pair him up with Ayush Matre, who can just keep going, something like what Abhishek Sharma used to do with Sanju Samson, and that'll give Sanju Samson some time. And Ruturaj as well, he won't have the pressure to keep going hard, and he
Yeah.
can play his natural game in the middle order and control the game from there. So, do you think that is a valid strategy to shift to after 2 failures?
Yeah, because when we made our playing 11 in our preview, we did mention that it would be Gaikwad at number 3. Uh, I actually don't understand the logic behind it. Maybe they wanted to just have the 2 best batters in the side at the top and go all out right from ball 1. But then when you lose a wicket, you suddenly lose all the experience. When you have Mhatre at the top, and if you lose an early wicket, you still have Gaikwad. Then you have a couple of youngsters in Brevis and Karthik Sharma, and then you have Dubey. So you're spreading your experience. So I think that's a better strategy for Chennai going ahead.
Yeah, and they played just two foreigners today, which was quite interesting. They had the option of either Jamie Overton or I think they
Akil
also
Hussain,
had
I was
Akil Hussain.
expecting him in the power play today.
Yeah, so once Devol Brevis comes in, who do you think from the current 11 will make place for him? Because I think Karthik Sharma, it's a bit too early to get him out. Sarfaraz Khan is impressed. You can't drop Gaikwad or Samson. So who do you think will go?
I think it doesn't make sense, but they would probably drop Rahul Chahar and basically play Brevis in the batting side and then sub out him or any other batter for Prashant Veer. That's how they should approach it because I would actually also like to see Akil Hussain in the side if they can somehow fit him in. But then you have too many spinners if you're playing Akil Hussain, Noor Ahmed, and Prashant Veer. So I think they may have to pick one between Noor and Akil Hussain. I think Akil Hussain he's done well in the power play across the world. I think he's one of the best bowlers right now, and he just brings a bit more variety to the bowling attack. And then you can maybe keep your pacers for the middle and death overs. Although I don't think it's going to make a difference, but you might as well just try with something different now.
Yeah, I think coming to the bowling, I feel that Matt Henry has disappointed and he's been taken down twice in two games, which is a bit concerning because he's generally a bank, at least in the power play, but he hasn't been able to deliver. And pair that up with Khalil Ahmed, he did impress a bit, but again, he's that's his limits. He is as good as that. And then Anshul Kamboj, who feels like will get scared when a batsman steps out even for one time. So it doesn't make for a good cover up as a bowling unit. And I was a bit surprised with their usage or non usage of Prashant Veer today because you had Nehal Vadera who had come in as a new batter and he was struggling a bit, and Shreyas Iyer who was absolutely in good rhythm, and they didn't even get Prashant Veer in for even 1 over, and he was their impact sub. So definitely you didn't get him in for his batting because he's not
I
that great as a
I,
batter.
I believe Prashant Veer was batting. Rahul Chahar was
Yeah,
the impact sub.
yeah, that's correct. But Prashant Veer, anyways, my point still stands. They didn't have him in the side just for his batting. You had Shreyas Iyer, who he does hit spin, but when nothing else is working, you keep going to the same options again and again. You could have instead given at least 1 over to the youngster. And if he doesn't get the ball ahead of someone like a Rahul Chair who's bowling half trackers every other ball, what does it do to his confidence as well? Someone who's
Yeah,
on his debut. Maybe he could have given you that breakthrough and you could have gotten into the game. Or maybe you could have gone for runs just like the one you're currently giving the ball to. So there was a very little downside to that, but it could have completely changed the fortune of the kid and your side in the game as well.
yeah, absolutely. Because if you look at Rahul Chahar, he's a right arm leg spinner, and Prashant Veer is a left arm off spinner. So the ball is going to turn in the same direction. So you might as well just try and give Prashant Veer an over, especially because you bought him for 14 crores and you didn't pick him in the last match as well. So you might give him a chance. Which brings me to Ruturaj Gaikwad as the captain, because we right now mentioned about the opening pair and if something different can be done. We also mentioned about the fact that they are using only two foreigners and leaving out players like Matt Short after just one match. They also left Jamie Overton, who literally saved them in the last match. Didn't save them, but kind of reduced the margin of defeat. They dropped him as well for no reason. And this issue with Prashant Veer. Do you actually think Ruturaj Gaikwad might not be the best option for CSK? And should they consider moving to either a Sanju Samson or some other player who I don't think exists right now? Or maybe even MS Dhoni once he's back. But do you see them doing this? Because I certainly have started to have my doubts against Gaikwad now.
Yeah, he has done decently in the domestic circuit as a captain. Nothing too good, but obviously he was selected as the one to replace MS Dhoni, and you never know if they don't want to openly admit it, but MS Dhoni might have gotten it wrong, and they have invested way too much into him to kind of abort the plan this late, because in 2024, I think he captained the entire season and they didn't qualify.
Yeah,
And in 25, the 6 games that he was there, they didn't do well as either. And then Dhoni kind of, towards the end of the season, I won't credit Dhoni for it entirely, but CSK did look like they were on the way up towards the end. And now again, you've got a different story. So maybe you can draw a link to CSK's failure with Gaikwad as the captain. But honestly, at this stage, I feel it is more to do with the team. I know he made a couple of errors here and there, but the base, the team that he's handling isn't capable, and you have to be honest and accept it. And someone, as a team that had the second highest purse in the auction, and to still fumble and go on with such a bowling attack, I think there's something wrong with the way they approach the auction itself, or they've backed the wrong players. I don't know, but something terribly wrong with the team itself, and I wouldn't really blame the captain in this situation.
yeah, but to counter that, I would assume that Ruturaj Gaikwad has a lot of say in the auction strategy and the kind of players that he wants. So there could be a chance that this philosophy of going to youngsters, it may not be completely his. There obviously will be inputs from the coach, maybe even MS Dhoni, but Gaikwad might have a bigger say in this. And in general, I don't see the kind of aggressiveness that a captain needs. It often feels that CSK, when they're fielding, if they get hit for runs, they just let go and they just start accepting what's going to happen to them. We saw that in the RR game where once Suryavanshi got off to a flyer, the fielding side, they looked very down. The body language was not quite good. And then there was a certain moment where Karthik Sharma dropped a catch, and then the ball was going to the boundary, and he wasn't even attempting to save it. He just was jogging behind, which didn't look good. And even today,
Yeah.
I heard that there were a few moments where the CSK body language wasn't that good. So I'm not quite sure if this is coming from Gaikwad himself, but because you have Sanju Samson right behind the wickets, who has captained RR previously and he's done decently well. Not that good, but they've made it to the playoffs and they've often been a very good side. I think that's a tempting option to maybe hand the captaincy over, not maybe during this season, but for the next year. They might think.
Yeah, I think a lot depends on whether Gaikwad can turn it around for CSK in this season, because it is too early to give up
Yeah,
in this season alone. They still, as you mentioned, have got Brevis to come in. You never know, the fortunes might change. But one thing I would like to really emphasize on here is that if you look at all the teams in the IPL, you kind of associate some kind of style of play with each team. However poor they might play, but you at least know that each team has their own way of operating. Even for someone as bland as the Gujarat Titans, they are known for something. But for CSK in the last couple of years, I don't see that. It just feels too random, and you can't really figure out if there is a particular strength or weakness to this side, because just sometimes what we perceive to be their strength ends up being their worst facet in the game, and vice versa as well. So I just feel they're a bit confused about what their strengths are, and when you don't know what you're good at and what you're bad at, I think it's difficult to make any changes and improve upon that. So that is something they need to figure out, and time is running out, because if they don't qualify this year as well, it'll be the third season in a row. And while MI were at the bottom for a couple of seasons, they pulled it back well in time. And
yeah,
CSK, they too have done it. They have been at the bottom in the past, but even they have pulled it back. But when you go 3 seasons without having any idea of how to get back to your winning ways, I think it is going to be a concern.
Yeah, three is a crowd, that, as they say. I actually didn't want to bring this up, but you mentioned how MI pulled it back. I think you have to give credit to MI for actually dealing with the Rohit Sharma situation the way they did, because they realized that Rohit is not going to be around for forever, and they needed to move on and find a successor. And they had to deal with the massive hate and backlash from the crowd for that 1 year, in which the team was honestly very good. They could have won it, but the overall atmosphere wasn't good. But now we're starting to see the rewards for it, because in this MI side, Rohit Sharma is no longer the man in charge. He's still respected and they do take his opinions and everything. But if he retires tomorrow, I don't think MI will be in a problem, because they have enough support from other players. They've built a new core. They're transitioning without making it abrupt. Whereas at CSK, the issue was that they kept sticking to MS Dhoni, Ravindra Jadeja, and all their old players for so many years, and suddenly they've gone, and now it's taking them too much time to find the new set of players that they can bank on for the next at least 7, 8, 9 years. So Gaikwad is probably one of them. Maybe Sanju Samson could be one. Brevis could be one. They just still need to find a few bowlers, which is the issue for them right now. But I think they're in the process of doing it. And I really hope that they can eventually come back to the top, because as a MI fan, it really I'm missing seeing CSK at their prime.
Yeah, that is putting it a bit too lightly, I would say, considering MI themselves. Yeah, I think it's getting too much into the nuances. Hopefully, they
Yeah,
get back. And for the time being, I think we have already spent quite a lot of time on CSK.
yeah.
So
But
I
so
would
just to
like to
close
bring
out,
up,
just to close out,
yeah,
I don't see things becoming better because they play RCB on Sunday, and RCB is at their peak right now. So I hope CSK and their fans survive that day, because it's going to get very brutal at the Chinnaswamy. But anyways, let's move on to another team that has disappointed. And there's another thing in common. They also had a very large purse at the auction. But this team, I think, has got very unlucky. We are talking about Kolkata Knight Riders. And I don't think this has ever happened in the IPL, where all of your first choice bowlers are injured. It happened to Lucknow last time, but they had almost a factory of fast bowlers, so they were still okay. But with KKR, it's not a good situation. But do you think it comes down to just that, or do you think they have other issues as well?
I feel the bowling has actually not performed as badly as the numbers suggest. If you see, they have conceded 220 twice now, but I felt that there were a lot of positives as well. But the negatives have far overpowered the positives, and the big negative for them is the bowlers who are actually available have not performed well. And the bowlers who they have banked a lot on in the past, Sunil Narine and Varun Chakravarti, both of them have left no impact in the first two games. The conditions haven't favored them as such, but you still expect them to be a bank even when they're not picking wickets, at least not go for runs. But Varun Chakravarti especially has been going for way too many runs and is doesn't seem to be in a position to pick wickets either. He's just it's not that there are a few close calls or the batters are trying to just release pressure. They're easily playing him out and getting runs off him without any trouble. So that is a big worrying sign. And when your best bowler out of the five, when four are injured, and you're left with one, and that one is actually worse than the four have replaced them, it is not a good sign. And
Yeah.
that is only their bowling. We haven't even talked about their batting yet.
Yeah, with CV Varun, he's gone for 300 runs in his last 25 overs. That is bold, which is very sad. I kind of am seeing so many experts, so-called experts, talking about his bowling speed, and they all say that he's bowling too fast. He's not letting the ball spin. But if it's that obvious, then I'm sure he would have also realized and would have tried his best to correct it. But I think there's something that's beyond the skill. It's just, I think his mentality is hurt. And I don't even know when this started. Maybe you could tell, from which game in the World Cup did this actually start?
Yeah, so this actually started from David Miller smashing him for three sixes in the Super 8 fixture. And even in that game, he started decently in his first over, and in the second over, David Miller took him down. And I don't know why, but this is a repeating pattern. We have decoded it before on the podcast as well.
Yeah.
When he's taken down early in his spell, he tends to go into a complete defensive mode and stops thinking about wickets and just bowls quicker and flatter and just tries to get away from the damage, which is not something he should be doing. He hasn't experienced getting bashed around so often in the past, and that is why maybe we haven't seen this side of him. And now that teams have started realizing that the best way to get past him is to smash him instead of looking to get away from him, because once you take attack to him, he's the one who's under pressure, and he's not someone who's handled pressure very well with his bowling. So I feel that is a big, I would say, he hasn't faced this kind of attack, so he will take time to work on it, and that time is something that he doesn't have, because after a grueling set of games at the World Cup, he straight away jumped into a 2 month long tournament. So he hasn't gotten the off time. And I see this season very difficult for him to make a comeback if the pitches are like this. And they've got two more games at the Eden Gardens in the coming week. It's going to be difficult for him. I think KKR need to realize that at the moment they need Varun Chakravarti and Sunil Narine to have the biggest impact for them, because nobody else is going to deliver for them. And if they can try and pivot to pitches that help them, you might see a better output. But if the conditions remain the same, KKR will be in trouble, because it is easy to score more runs than KKR at this stage, because they've got the worst bowling attack.
Yeah, this was one of those moments where I honestly felt bad for Chakravarti, and it brought out the cruel side of cricket because it's his own teammates who are now smashing him. In the last match, we saw Rohit Sharma, who took full advantage of this vulnerability and kicked off the over with, I think, two fours and a six. And this time it was Abhishek Sharma who did the same thing. And the next three games are against Punjab, Lucknow, and CSK, where you could expect a similar level of onslaught. So I really hope Chakravarti finds a way. Maybe he takes a break for one or two games to find his rhythm back. Or
Yeah,
the issue is he's the lead bowler, so it's all down to him. He can't really go under the radar now.
yeah, I think for a couple of games, they have to use him not as a lead bowler, but as someone as you would treat a rookie, just
Yeah.
because he needs that confidence. Maybe get him in when there are two new batters, or when you have got someone who's struggling at the crease, and try and get him in that time so that he can settle in without getting hit. And that is how maybe he will build confidence. And if he gets a wicket early on in his spell, you never know. He might actually deliver, and just one wicket here or there, or one good spell, might actually change his tournament.
Yeah. And with that, let's speak of the captain who is responsible for the bowling attack and rotating them around. I read a stat recently that Rahane is one of the worst captains in the IPL in terms of stats, where he lost. He's won only 16 out of the 56 games that he's captained. I'm not sure if this is accurate. It could be something similar, but it's certainly a lot more losses than wins for him, which is not good for a captain who's actually been the vice captain of the Indian Test side. You would expect better results from him. But all in all, what's your let's say analysis or your takeaway from Ajinkya Rahane, both as the captain, the opener, and the batter?
Filled with a lot of self loathing skills, I would say.
Masti.
Honestly, I feel that he lives in his own bubble. And this is not after what he said in the press conference. I've had this opinion about him for quite a while. He is a good player, at best a backup. In no way should he be starting. I said that at the start of the season as well. Now that the conditions and the format itself has evolved so much, there's no room for players like Rahane, who just feel that they hit a couple of boundaries and they feel that they've done their job, and Now the job is to stay till the end. That mindset does not work, and you can see the numbers as well. He's got a better strike rate than Virat Kohli in the power play, which is good. But then afterwards, after the power play ends, he's the probably one of the worst. He averages 17 and strikes at 120 after the power play ends, and he doesn't get out as soon as the power play ends either. So he chews up balls, and those are valuable in today's day and age when those balls determine if you are ending up at the right score or 20 runs short. Because you saw that in the first game as well. After the power play ended, he just felt that we have got 80 in the power play, so now I can take my time. That is where it all crumbles for him. And the fact that he thinks he's doing it well is even more astonishing, because he was asked in the press conference, what do you think about people who don't who kind of call you out for your slow batting post the power play. I'm not quoting the journalist here, and he replied that they're jealous of me and they have an agenda against me, but right now he's trying to do it with his mouth instead of with his bat.
So let's spill the beans. With, are you jealous of Ajinkya Rahane?
Yeah, very jealous that he can lead a team in the IPL in 2026 with those numbers.
I actually don't think he's that bad of a batter. I just think that he's stuck in a situation where I believe he can go much quicker than what he's doing after the power play. But with the batting to follow, there's so much inexperience and uncertainty that I don't think he's allowing himself to take that risk or go at 100%, which is very similar to what Gaikwad is doing or what Rahul has been doing for the last X years. Because if you saw Ajinkya Rahane bat at CSK in 2023 and even 2024, his role was specific. He would come in the middle overs and up the run rate and go. And that's when he did really good. I think he scored a 20 ball 50 as well once against Mumbai. So when he had his role defined, he was really good. But here the issue is he has to hit in the power play because there's no other option. But after that, immediately starts thinking about the team and then has to pull back a bit and not really attack every single ball. So do you think it's a bit of that, or do you think it's just the core issue in his batting?
Yeah, I feel you have to kind of at some point think that if you try to stay in there, it's not going to help the team any more than you actually pushing the run rate up and getting out. Because if you see, you've still got Ramandeep at 7 and Naren at 8, so it's not that poor the batting. Ramandeep at 7, I think he is more than capable to save you if you lose early wickets, and you've got enough batting, so there's no need for you to think that you will be the savior, because most of the times when you stay post the power play, you make things tougher for yourself and your team. So I think it is high time someone tells him that, just show him the numbers, maybe if he understands numbers, and that once he thinks that if he stays for long he'll help the team, but it's the exact opposite. And whenever he stays for long, they end up at a disadvantage and lose games. So either change your style of play or don't play.
Wow, that's very brutal. And I actually never knew that Rahane is capable of replying to questions in such a way. Because to me it was a big shock. I heard this for the first time on Crickbuzz Live, and even the panelists were extremely surprised that Ajinkya Rahane was replying in this way. And I think he did that in the previous game as well when they were asked about Cam Green's bowling. I said that you can ask Cricket Australia about that. So it's very shocking, but I hope they can find out some solution. But I think, is it safe to say that this is his last year, not just as a captain, but also as a player in the IPL? Or do you see him hopping franchises and continuing for another couple of years?
It all depends on if he can change his style, because there are many better players who can actually be potential longer servers for their franchises if you invest early in them. So I don't see why anyone would like to invest in Rahane at this stage of his career. It all depends on if he does something extraordinary, which I don't see happening from here. So I feel this might be the end of the road, and you never know. He might also be forced to do a Gambhir, what Gambhir did in 2018 for Delhi Daredevils. Because if you look
Well,
at it, I wouldn't be surprised. I've seen Sunil Narine actually hit the ball quite well in the nets, and he also hit a couple of sixes last game. So imagine if he's in decent touch, him and Finn Allen at the top, and then you get Angakrish at three. The rest of the batting remains the same, and you can fit in an extra bowling option or anyone at the lower or in the order so that they have a deeper batting, because that can be an option. And of course, Rahane as a captain, you won't remove him, but that is, I would actually want to say that in the best 11 for KKR, Rahane doesn't fit in at the moment.
yeah, that's a good suggestion. I would also probably suggest playing Rahane at number 4 or number 5. And it's not because he will play slow, but I think he can try and replicate his CSK role because that somehow really worked for him. Because I've never seen him bat that fluently. Because he made batting look easy as well. It's not as if he was kind of inventing new shots. He was playing his normal cricketing shots, but with a lot of freedom. So if Naren and Allen can get them to a good start, then you can have Raghuvanshi and Rahane coming in, and then Rahane can be the aggressor and just play 15, 20 balls, score 30, 40 runs, and then get out. That might work, but obviously I'm not sure Rahane has that much flexibility as a captain because if he knew what was happening, he wouldn't have replied to the journalist the way he did because he's trying to push the blame away from himself. So I don't really see anything changing.
Yeah, if he was secure about his style of play, and if he knew what he was doing was right and he was getting the backing, then you wouldn't see that reply. So I feel that the pressure is on him. It's just been two games and it's technically been just one failure for him. In the first game, I know he absolutely dotted up after the power play and had a big role in them finishing a few runs short, but let's be honest, he also scored those 50 runs in the power play. So he looks in rhythm, and it's more to do with his mentality, which is, I would say, good news for him, because if he can actually just keep up with the flow or just shift down to just one gear down and not completely shut stop, I think he might still end up doing well in a couple of games, but this is not the way to go forward.
Yeah, so spoken a lot about CSK and KKR. Before we move to the next part of the podcast, would you like to highlight about any other franchise that has surprised you? Because in my personal opinion, so far the IPL has gone according to my initial predictions. I obviously thought CSK would do well, but looking at the state of their squad, I think before the first match itself, I was kind of sure because there was no Brevis and Dhoni. But other than that, all the teams have kind of lived up to my expectations. But was there anybody else who surprised or disappointed you?
I was a bit surprised with the way uh, Punjab Kings played, to be honest. And not that they fumbled, almost fumbled in the chase, but the fact that they got to a position from where even a bit of a blip, still they could recover from there and win. So I would say they have done really well. In the first game against Gujarat, I would say it was a great bowling effort from them first, and then Cooper Connolly, of course, chased it really professionally. So I think Punjab, if you look at the match situations, I would say they've done really well to get into strong positions and kind of kill the chase in the at the start so that they can afford to actually slow down a bit and still be ahead in the game.
Yeah, so our IPL predictions, that's what I'm trying to pull out. We made some crazy predictions for the top 10. I'm sure some of our predictions are quite wrong already. Do you still kind of agree with the top 4 that you predicted, or would you like to make a few changes?
Oh, I think Rajasthan Royals did do well in their first game, but I would say my top three look good. Not in the exact order, but I think that will be the top three. The fourth one, I still back LSG to do well. but RR can be a good competition. So can Delhi, and so can Gujarat. It is a bit too
Yeah,
much, but
I think for
yeah,
you, the top three and the bottom three are locked in. And I think this is how it's
yeah,
going to
that's for
finish.
sure.
The middle four is where you have to, that's a very unpredictable. For me, there's obviously a huge miss or a huge blunder by putting CSK at number two. I kind of knew it while making the prediction, but I backed CSK, the brand, and their past, the track record that they have. As you mentioned, they've usually bounced back really strongly after bad seasons, but so far it's not looking like that will happen. But other than that, I think I might have rated Delhi a bit lower than what they are. I think for me, they are ahead of Lucknow right now, and Gujarat is kind of down, at least in the bottom half. But I still think RR will qualify, and they might even make it to the top two because they're looking very good. And then RCB and Punjab are also looking very solid.
Yeah, I feel Delhi and to some extent Rajasthan overperformed a bit, and I feel Delhi will show some mean reversion in the upcoming games. They didn't look convincing in that win, and I would say you might see a different, you might have a different opinion about Delhi once the season progresses a bit. Rajasthan, they were impressive, but again, everything worked for them, which doesn't happen every time. So I would like to see when they're in a bit of a trouble, how do they pull things back? Because that was their biggest weakness last time. They couldn't close out games. So I would like to see if they have improved upon in that aspect, and that will determine if they end up in the middle of the table or actually qualify.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, with that, let's go to the final part of the podcast, which is about a few players that have impressed both of us. And then I think there's something else as well. But I'll go first this time. It's actually very difficult to pick one player who's impressed me because there have already been so many excellent knocks. But my top three would be at number three, Rohit Sharma, because I was I was backing him from the start, and both yourself and our father basically gave him no chance, and they said that Rohit Sharma in his prime will score 30 and go. And that's what my dad said. So he's completely, at least for the first match, he's surprised everybody. And I'm thinking that this is going to be a big year for him. So he's done well. The second player that I would like to pick is Cooper Conley because on his debut, he played a match winning innings. I don't think he was the man of the match, but I think his innings was the reason why Punjab won because had he got out before, not even during the 4 wicket collapse, but even before that, I think it would have been a bit tricky for Punjab because that wicket was where you needed one set batter. Because we saw that with Gujarat as well. The moment they lost their set batters, which also happened quickly, right after that the innings slowed down. So Cooper Conley, his batting till the end was very important for that win. And the third one is very difficult to pick, but I would probably say Samir Rizvi because he also did a similar role to Cooper Conley, where the team was in trouble and then managed to stitch a partnership with Tristan Stubbs. I think almost 100 run partnership, and they ended up seeing the match to the end. And that was a very good innings as well because he's also played the IPL before with CSK. Didn't have the best of seasons, so for him to come back and get his only chance because there was Ashutosh waiting and everybody expected Ashutosh to come in, but they backed Rizvi and he's really proven himself. And now I think he'll get more chances. So good job from him as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Samir Rizvi and Cooper Connolly as a part of your three because I also had them in my three, but I was also a bit sad that there were so many other names I couldn't take. So that has liberated me. I feel I'll still miss out on quite a few, but three players that I'm rooting for and have impressed me. I think first one is Nitish Kumar Reddy. He has done well. I think in the first game he opened the bowling and batted at number 4,
Yeah.
and as our beloved Harsha Bhogle mentioned that both of those roles were not for him at this stage of his career. He
Yeah.
might become good at that later on, and that is his aim, but he's not there right now. And that is something that SRH realized immediately, and he was brought in as the third change with the ball and at number 6 in the very next game, and he showed you glimpses of what he can actually do. He picked up a couple of crucial wickets, and then, or rather, after scoring a very handy 39 with the bat. So he delivered really well, and I think his bowling looks in a great condition right now, better than I've ever seen him bowl, and he looks fit, which is good. I've seen him at his peak. He used to bowl at a pace of around 140,
Yeah.
and I can see that aspect coming back to his game.
Yeah, just a quick note. A lot of people are saying that Nitish Kumar Reddy is the backup to Hardik Pandya. And interestingly, he's also on a similar trajectory because maybe 6, 7 years back, Hardik was the guy who would come in at number 6 and bowl a couple of overs. And then he's improved himself. And now he can bat at number 4 and can also open the bowling. So maybe Nitish Kumar Reddy is on that journey. And maybe in a couple of years, he'll also become as good.
Yeah, a great prospect for India. And the second name is Thangarusu Natarajan. I was really impressed with his comeback. He was battling a very severe injury, I would say, and to come back after having not played professional cricket in the past year, to come back and do that in the first game. He picked up a three-fer, but more than that, I was looking out for his accuracy, which was his biggest strength, and that seems to have been back. And I'm really impressed because if Natarajan does well, it also enables Delhi Capitals to play that extra overseas opener
Yeah.
and not having to compromise, because then they can play just one overseas pacer. So I feel that was really good. And there are a lot of other names that I will miss out. Lungisani Ngidi did really well. You had, of course, Mohsin Khan and Prince Yadav already mentioned ho chuke hain.
Priyansh
And
Arya is another name today. I
yeah,
think he
Priyansh Arya is
was the man of the match, even though he played only 11 balls. So that was the impact that he had.
yeah, truly an impact sub. And then you had, I was impressed by Anshul Kamboj as well in parts, not exactly his entire effort, but he looked good and he can be worked on. But I would say my third name is actually going to be.
It happened to me as
I
well. I
had,
blanked out at the end. I think we also missed Vaibhav Suryavanshi, who got the 15 ball 50, which could be the fastest of this season. And he got that right in his first innings. And that was funny because I was watching that match live and I saw that he hit a 6 of the first ball, then hit a 4 of the second ball, and just kept going. And suddenly he reached his 50. And I was shocked that I saw it live and I still couldn't believe that someone as young as him could play such fearless cricket.
yeah. So I think that's all I had to mention. I'm completely blanked out. There's so many positives for Indian cricket. That was my point. And this truly feels like the Indian Premier League because it is run by the Indians, and the Indians are the ones who are benefiting the most from this league. So that is always great, and
Except
hopefully.
the commentary. That was a point that I had forgotten. And more or less, the English commentary has been decent because I'm glad that Ian Bishop is getting a lot more opportunities. He was at the first toss as well at Bangalore, which is very good to see. And it's a bit embarrassing because he still is the man who seems like the most prepared and knowledgeable, even about Indian domestic players. I think he mentioned a story about Aniket Verma and how his uncle helped him reach to the higher levels of cricket. And that should have come from someone like a Harsha Bhogle or a Deepdas Gupta or a Murli Karthik. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. But I'm even more disappointed with the Hindi commentary, which is an absolute joke at this point. The biggest joke is that they're making Ravichandran Ashwin do Hindi commentary. And he's literally taking Hindi lessons from Mr. Vimal Kumar doing their
Might
videos.
as well have gotten him into the commentary box.
So, what are your thoughts? Because one thing is that I haven't watched every match live. I usually follow it on Cricinfo, but I think you have watched more than me. So, what are your thoughts about the commentary?
Yeah, when I'm commuting around, that is when I listen to the commentary. So even if I haven't watched all the games, I've listened to every single game. So I am the best one to talk about this. And I have to say, Ian Bishop, long live Ian Bishop, because he's the one commentary ka commentary ka tambu, Bishop ki bambu. And that is very true because nobody else seems to have any idea of what is going on. And this might sound like I'm exaggerating, but it is the truth. Today itself, I heard Deep Das Gupta. He was talking to Sairaj Bhautule, and what was once just a chat between the coach and the commentators is now labeled as C8 strategic chat, which is quite funny. And he was the first question he asked was, how is this being your second year with the Punjab Kings? How is it going? And Bahutule answered, no, it is my first season with Punjab Kings. So that is the kind of effort taken by some of the commentators out there. And it's horrible because what does it take? You're getting paid to do this job, and all you need to do is just, you don't need to research about every single staff out there, but you're interviewing someone, so at least that much information you should have. I can understand if it happens once or twice, maybe a brain fade, because it is hard to talk in real time
Look at
as we
us.
have learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would like to say this. Harsha Bhogle ji and Ravi Shastri, both of them have dropped off in quality massively. And let me say this at the very start, I'm not taking a jab at them. They're very good. I'm nobody to comment on commentary. I'm probably one of the worst commentators. Let me put that away. But Harsha Bhogle and Ravi Shastri, at one stage, I used to be excited for their commentary gigs, and they used to genuinely feel good and they used to add some value to the broadcast. But nowadays, Ravi Shastri, even I would say couple of seasons back, he had already started showing signs. But Harsha Bhogle this season has disappointed me a lot. And I remember he just doesn't add value anymore. That's what I feel. He just calls the action with little excitement, and then half the time he's just, it feels like he's acting as a filler out there. I remember he kept emphasizing Shivam Dubey to take strike, and he kept saying that that is why he's in the side, that is why he's in the side, at least 4 to 5 times. And I think you have kind of already said your point. You don't have to keep repeating it. It is a sign that you have nothing else to say. And he mistook the names quite often. He called Shashank Singh as Prashant Veer in the field, which is something I don't associate with Harsha Bhogle. Murli Karthik is the one for that. But all in all, I feel Harsha Bhogle needs to stick to storytelling, and calling action isn't his cup of tea anymore. I feel very sad to say this, but after listening to him today, I'm convinced that this might be the end of the road. I know, of course, he's not that old and there's no age to retire in commentary, but if he's self aware, I think the call should be made now.
Yeah. That's what I'm also starting to see. There's a lot of volume, or he makes it look something he makes it look like it's something huge. But when you actually focus on what he's saying, there's not a lot of new things that he's adding, because that's what a commentator is supposed to do. We can obviously see what's happening. So if you're just telling us what's happening, there's no use, but you need to bring in some more context, some more information that the viewers might not be aware of. And that's where I think Harsha Bhogle and Ravi Shastri kind of lack. They make the scene look very grand, and the way they speak is really good, but the actual substance is missing. But I think Harsha Bhogle, Ravi Shastri, and to an extent even Sunil Gavaskar, they have earned this respect in the commentary industry, or profession, because they've done this for so many years and they've been the voices of Indian cricket. So I think they are an exception and they will get a longer run, and it's up to them to call it quits. But I think for others like Murli Karthik or Deepdas Gupta, I think there certainly needs to be a bit of analysis as to how much work they're putting in. Because honestly, Murli Karthik has often been quite error prone, and a lot of that comes down to just the spontaneity of commentary. Because when he is in a show like, let's say, Crickbuzz Live, he often makes really good points, and it shows that he has a good understanding for the game. And a lot of experts over there also value his opinions. So I just think that when it's happening live in front of him, he kind of runs out of things to say, and that's when he makes mistakes. So he should also probably try and question if this is the right thing to do. But the question is, are there any other commentators that can replace these guys, be it from India or from across the world? So who do you think is missing that can do a better job than these guys?
Yeah, it is difficult to take names here if we haven't heard them before. And if they don't get the opportunity, I feel they will never be able to show what they can do. And even the audience, if they don't know what they're missing, they will never realize that there were better options all along the way. Ronak Kapoor recently has done quite a commendable job. He was there for the ICC events, India, the Women's World Cup and the T20 World Cup, and he's also there for the IPL this year, which is a great addition. And I just feel that you can't be lazy when it comes to such things. And most times it is just the broadcaster being lazy and doesn't do his work, research work. You saw Bishop pull up a couple of great stories, and then you had Deep Das Gupta and Murli Karthik just do take the efforts to dig out one story themselves, and they did talk about it in the next game and then back to square one. So that is not how it works. You have to have that passion, and sometimes I feel that there's a difference between being an expert and a commentator, and
Yeah.
that is what people fail to understand. You can be really good at understanding the game and giving your opinions, but you might not be good at calling the action. And sometimes you're good at just calling the action, even though you might not have such deep knowledge of the game. Because while you're commentating, you don't need to have deep knowledge of the way cricket is played. You just need to know the basics, you need to know what is going on and be able to explain it to people. And that is the difference which I think many people don't understand, because had they understood, you would have seen more people who are better at speaking and communicating rather than people who are good at playing cricket. And I remember Harsha Bhogle himself saying that if you are a great player, you get 2 years in the commentary box. If you are a great captain, maybe 4 years. And after that, it is your presentation skills that take you forward. And I've seen quite a good amount of newbies who have done well, like Aaron Finch, Shane Watson as well,
Dinesh
Carlos
Karthik as well.
Brathwaite, yeah, Dinesh Karthik. So there are a lot of examples of cricketers who can be good presenters, but then you also have so many examples of decent cricketers, but they've got nothing to do with presenting, but just because of their cricketing history, they're in the commentary box. So that is something that needs to be worked out, and I think it will make the viewing experience much better.
Yeah, I actually had one interesting thought and a perspective towards this problem. I'm not sure if the English commentary team is hired by the BCCI or Star Sports. So you can correct me on this, but if Star Sports is hiring both the English and Hindi commentary teams, I think what's happening is the Hindi commentary, let's say the job responsibility feels a lot less than the English commentary teams, because with the English commentary teams, you actually have to travel to different grounds and you have to be there, do the toss, do the pitch report, and all of that. But with Hindi, they just sit in a studio in Mumbai. There's a nice AC, cold room. There's a huge screen. You're sitting on a couch with your mates and you're chatting about cricket. So obviously that sounds like a more exciting prospect for commentators, which is why I think you're seeing players like or commentators like Ashwin, Robin Uthappa, Anil Kumble, who are primarily English commentators. They are still choosing to do it in Hindi, which makes absolutely no sense. So I'm not sure if Star Sports is offering them a better package, or is it that they don't want to commit to traveling to different cities, which is why they are sticking to Hindi. But something needs to be done because these guys clearly are not at their best when in Hindi. and they have been in English commentary before for other tournaments or ICC events where they have done a decent job. So if Star Sports can somehow bring these guys to English and just rotate the commentators better, it will improve because right now it feels like there are only 30% of the commentators doing English and there's a huge crowd for Hindi, which doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, so BCCI does appoint the English commentators, and they are the ones who handle the global feed, which is the feed that goes to all the broadcasters across the world. And Star Sports also does work in the English language, but they have their own appointees there. And when someone is not doing work for the global feed, like you had, for example, Sunil Gavaskar today, who wasn't there for commentary. He was in Mumbai with the Star Sports crew in their studio, but he was doing the English show. But he wasn't associated to the global feed in any ways, just the Star Sports pre and post match shows. So that is the difference, and I feel that is why you can see Ashwin. I don't see the show that Star Sports do, but he might be doing the pre-match and post-match in both English and Hindi, but they don't have the English commentary during the game because that is handled by the global feed of BCCI. So you might see him in the commentary box only for Hindi, but when the feed is showing English content from Star Sports, like the pre and post match shows, maybe he's there for that as well.
Yeah, so I think it basically comes down to BCCI then. They should try and
Yeah.
hire better commentators because I think Ashwin today was commentating the Hindi game from start to end. And he was in Chennai as well, I think. He traveled to Chennai to witness the crowd because he did the pitch report in Hindi and he commentated the entire game in Hindi, which makes no sense. So I think it's BCCI who have to up their game over here as
Yeah,
well.
and they have to understand that IPL is now a global product.
Yeah.
And if that is their aim, the one way to show that you're a global leader is having world class broadcast standards. And commentary is a big part of that. And the kind of standards set by the current bunch, I would say at best it feels like a local tournament. You've got a few exceptions, but I would say Michael Clark was there today. He too just calls the action as it is. And it is good. It is much better than some of the others. But still, he doesn't do his homework. That is what I feel. Because he doesn't add interesting nuggets of information or any as such data or any insights. He just calls the action, which is still good because he does it really well. But then you've got people like Ian Bishop and maybe Natalie Germanos, who's not there right now, but they are the ones who I have seen working the hardest and they've got all the information, which is quite commendable.
Yeah. So I hope they can up the commentary, and I think there will be new commentators joining during the season as well. So that should
Yeah, I've
add,
seen Alan Wilkins is a part of the roster this time, which is
wow.
interesting.
So that should add some variety, hopefully. So looking forward to that. So I think if we have covered everything, it's time to end because we've been speaking for almost 80 minutes, which is almost our longest ever podcast, I think.
Yeah, so a lot of action coming up, and we will also be coming up with a lot of content. So stay tuned for that. Enjoy the IPL, enjoy the unfiltered feed, and we will be back very shortly.